Finally, we've reached the 7th and last episode of the Torii photo manipulation course, the Photoshop section. On the previous episodes, we've worked on the Blender and created the scene. We've modeled it and gave it a texture and also added some lights and worked on the camera. And if you want to know how we've created all of this, just make sure to watch the playlist, the Torii photo manipulation course playlist, or the previous videos of this playlist before, and after that come back to this video. But before we start, wait here and give it a like to this video, and then let's get started. So we're in Photoshop, my old and lovely friend. I've just imported the scene and changed its layer name to background and unlock the layer. Let's bring the figure first of all, and I'm gonna use this figure, this character for the scene. Because I've used it before in my previous artwork, I didn't want to change it anymore in this video. Hit OK and then let's select it and cut it out. But unfortunately, we don't have screencast keys as we did in Blender, which you were able to see which keys are pressed here. But instead of that, I'm going to inform you when I use the hotkeys myself. So let's cut out this character. We have several ways to do that, but for this one, I'm going to use the object selection tool. The hotkey for this one is W. You can press W and this will open up to you. And it's one of the powerful tools in Photoshop. You can hover your mouse over an object and click on that, and it would select the object for you. And the selection is really cool and strong. Let's select these parts, and it doesn't recognize this part. We have to do it ourselves manually by hand. I usually select a overall picture selection with one of these tools, the object selection tool or the quick selection tool, and after that I will refine it afterwards with one of the supporting tools, for example the lasso tool or maybe pen tool. For this one I use the object selection tool, and let's choose the lasso tool, this one, and the hotkey for this one is L. And to refine the edges, we have to subtract and add some parts from the selection. I want to add these parts to the selection, and this part won't be very obvious in the last result because we will add shadows here and it would be black, but by the way I have to be perfect. Let's minus this part, and for minusing, if you hold Alt, you see that the icon near the cursor is changed to minus, and it would minus the selection. Wherever you select, it would subtract from your selection. And if you hold Shift, it will change to plus, and you can add to your selection. Wherever you select, it will add to selection. But by default, it's on add to selection option, and you don't have to hold Shift for adding your selection. When you want to minus, when you want to subtract, just hold Alt, just that. So let's correct the other parts. Here maybe we can add this part. The quick selection tool or the magic selection tool didn't recognize this part as an object because the quality of this picture, a samurai or maybe it's a monk, I don't know well, maybe the quality is bad because of that. And let's correct this one as well. And also we have to fix these parts here. We have to minus this part. Let's subtract it, and also this part, and then this part, like this, and we have to add this part to the selection, and minus this part, and subtract it. I don't have a pen, I'm doing this with mouse. Because of that, they aren't that perfect. But if you have pen, it would be much better results. And I think that's over. Yes, that's cool. So with this one selected, press Ctrl J, and it will take a copy of the selection. And if I turn it off, the figure layer, you see that we have a different layer and it's for our figure. So let's double click on that and change it to figure. And I will delete this one, just select it and delete that layer. We don't need it anymore. But you see that this layer has some lights on the edges and we don't want it. We have to get rid of them. For this one, hold Control and come all the way up to here, and on the picture of your layer, click on that, and you see that it has selected the layer. So come to the select bar, and on the modify tab, you can choose the contract, and here it will ask you to contract by how many pixels do you want to contract. For this one, let's start with 3 pixels, and you see that the selection is contracted by 3 pixels. So let's check the selection itself one more time, and I have to fix these parts because there's no need for contract these parts. I have to add these parts. I don't want them to be contracted. Let's fix them like this. And also, because I selected this part myself manually by hand, we don't have any issues and problems here. But for the other parts, we have. So I have to add all of these parts like this. And maybe for the blade itself, we don't need it like that. And the other parts, I think we have to subtract, but not this part again. Or maybe we have to do with this part. We had some edges here as well. So let's invert the selection because now the inside is inverted, and if we hit backspace, it would delete the character. So press Ctrl-Shift-I to invert the selection and hit backspace, and after that let's deselect the selection by Ctrl-D. Ctrl-D is a shortcut for deselecting your selection in Photoshop. And you see that we have still some edges here. Let's do it again. Hold Ctrl and then select the object and come here to the select part, and after that modify, contract. This time I'm gonna use 2 pixels for this one, and let's check it out again to not miss any parts of the shape. And I think that's good, it will do. And again, let's do the same process as we did for previous one. I don't have to do with these parts. Let's select them all like this, and after that let's invert the selection, Ctrl-Shift-I and hit backspace and Ctrl-D, and there you go, we have a gray selection now. And for this one, let's change this issue here. Let's select one of the parts here, maybe the right part, and hit Ctrl-J to take a copy of this one and select the Move tool. And for your information, the hotkey for Move tool is V. If you press V, it will select this one. And bring it here, press Ctrl-T and then right click, then flip horizontal and hit OK. And maybe again Ctrl-T, let's rotate it a little bit. And also we can scale it. Press Shift and scale it on one side to have this shape here, and hit OK and press E. E is a shortcut for the eraser, and let's scale the size of brush. You can hold Alt and right click, and then if you drag your mouse left and right, it would increase the size of your brush or decrease it. I'm going to decrease it like this, and if you drag your mouse up and down, it will affect or influence your hardness of brush. And for this one, I want a really soft brush, so the hardness should be on 0 value. So let's erase it a little bit like this, and there you go. And at the end, select 2 of them and hit Ctrl-E to merge the layers as a one layer. Hit Ctrl-0 to fit the picture in the scene, and right click on that and convert it to a smart object. And now let's scale the object. It's too big for the scene. Maybe this would be great, this size. I think it is good now. Yeah, this size is good, and maybe here itself is good for the object itself. So the first thing I do is matching the brightness of the figure with the background, and after that I will match the colors of them. So for doing that we have several ways, but my favorite way is this one. Come here in the adjustments, add a solid color and bring a grayish color. It shouldn't have any saturation like this. It should be saturation on the 0 value, and you can choose any color in this gradient from white to black. I'm going to use a random gray color and hit OK, and from this part change the layer mode to color, and it will help you to see that the difference of the brightness of the scene and also the figure itself. For these two pictures we don't have any difference, but we can improve them a little bit. Select this layer, and I forgot to change it to figure. Let's double click on that and change it to figure. And from the adjustments tab, bring a curves layer and hit on the clipping mask, and you see that it's masked to the previous layer. And now select this hand button here and choose one of the highlighted parts of the layer or figure, and let's decrease it a little bit to fit the background. Maybe something around this. And after fixing the highlighted parts, come to the darkest point of the character and select it and try to match it with the darkest point of the scene and background. It shouldn't be that dark. Maybe something like this would be good for us. Now let's turn it off for now, and you see that we have a better result now. Let's turn it off to see what happened now. And I should mention that these steps are really subtle, and maybe you think with yourself that, oh, it's not important, let's skip this part. But keep in your mind that the difference between a perfect image and a good image is on the details, okay? So try to apply as many details you can to your picture. Believe me, it will improve your image, the quality of your result that you can't even imagine yourself. So the brightness of the background and the figure is good for now. Let's enable this one again, and for this one I'm gonna change the color to luminosity. And with this one you can see the difference between the colors of background and the figure. We have to match the colors of background and the figure, and for that let's add a channel mixer, and again let's enable the clipping mask, and by that all of the layers here that we have clipped them to the preceding layer, they would affect and influence just the previous layer, they would affect in this figure layer. So let's select this one, and on the output channel we have 3 channels, red, green, blue, and we have to play with these amounts to find a good result with the colors of the figure. So first of all, let's work with the redness of the figure, maybe like this, and you have to play with this to find a correct amount and colors for this one. Let's change it to green, and maybe we can turn it up a little bit, and for this one as well, and also like this. And about the blue ones, we can increase it just a little bit, not so much. And for the green part, like this, and there we go. But I think the redness of this one is a little bit more. We can decrease it just like that, and in that case it would be fitted very well with the background. Let's disable the color. Let's disable this layer, and you see the results here. Let's enable it and disable it. You see the before and after. We have a big influence here. So I think the color correction is down, and also the brightness of the background and the figure itself is good. And now it's time to add a shadow for our character. Select the background, and let's add a new layer. You can add a new layer, but we come here and click on that. But I'm not gonna do that. Press Ctrl Shift and N, then a new window will open up to you, and it's for a new layer. I'm gonna call it shadow and hit OK, and we have a new layer. And also in the beginning of the video, I forgot to tell you about the history. Before you start to work, just come to Edit and Preferences, then General, and come to the Performance part, and from here change the history states to 1000, because when you want to come back, for example, if you go something wrong or did something wrong and you want to come back 50 steps backwards, it won't let you to do that, because the default of the history states is on 50 and you can't go further. For not having these problems, you can change the history stage to 1000, and by that you can go back 1000 steps as you did, and it's really perfect and good. When you made some mistakes, you can easily come back and continue from that point. So let's select brush by pressing B. B is the hotkey for brush, and let's zoom in a little bit. You can zoom in by holding Alt and scrolling down and up your middle mouse button, and you can move in the scene in your picture. If you hold space and the cursor, the icon of cursor is changed to a hand, and in that case you can move in your image. So let's come here and zoom in a little bit, and let's fix the size and also the hardness. As I told you, you can hold Alt and right click, then drag your mouse to the left and right and also up and down. The hardness should be 0, and we can scale it a little bit up. And for the opacity and flow, I'm gonna decrease it like this. And let's change the color to black, or maybe we can choose a color from scene. If you hold Alt, the eyedropper tool will open up to you, and you can choose one of the shadows of the scene. Maybe this one is good, and select this one and make it a little bit darker like this. And now start to paint here and there. And when you're doing photo manipulation, you have to pay attention where the lights are coming. It's so important. For example, if the lights are coming from this side, we can't have shadows on this side. So let's do it like this. And also I should mention that because it's a tutorial, I don't want to take your time, and I'm doing it really fast. You can take your time and create really amazing stuff yourself. So with this one as well, let's decrease the size of brush and paint some shadows here and there like this. It should be subtle, and let's increase the opacity a little bit to have a shadow like this. And maybe we can choose the eraser tool and start to clean it a little bit like this, and also this one as well. Select the brush tool by pressing B, and also work on the edges a little bit more like that. Yeah, I like it. You see the difference if you turn it off. You see that it has a huge difference on the image. So let's select the figure and add a new layer, Ctrl Shift N, and again I'm going to call it shadow, but maybe we can call it shadow on, because this shadow would be on the layer itself. But if you notice in the real world, in reality, the lower parts of the object also has a shadow on it. The parts of an object that they are sitting or laying on a surface, on a floor, they had a subtle shadow, and in Photoshop, for making it real, we had to add some shadows on the lower parts of our object when it faces the ground and the surface. And it's clipping mask as well. In that case, everything we do is just limited to previous layer, the figure layer. Let's add some shadows like that. And you see that it's getting to become more and more realistic. Let's decrease it and add some shadows. In that case, like this, make it a little bit professional. And there we go. And if I turn this layer off, you can see the result of that. You can see how it can affect our scene and how the character in our art would be natural. So the next step is to add lights and maybe exaggerate on the lighting of the scene. Let's select another layer, Ctrl-Shift-N, and this time I'm going to call it light. And for this one, we have to change a little bit. We have to change the color to gray. We have to change the mode to color dodge, and also you have to check this on fill with color dodge, neutral color, and hit OK. And we have a black layer, but it isn't a normal layer. So what does it do? Let's change it. Let's change the color to white. If you paint with your brush on this layer with the light color, it would add light to your scene, and it's a powerful way to add lights and create lights in Photoshop. Let's add some lights here and there. It shouldn't be too much, and also for this one as well, for this one, and also for these ones, but it shouldn't be not that. Maybe this is good. And these ones, I think they are a little bit more. Let's change the color to black and raise it a little bit, not so much, like that. And I think that's good now, but we can change it. We can change the color to white again and add a little bit light to these parts, to the flames. And there we go. Come to adjustments and add a exposure adjustments, and let's decrease it all the way up to here. And we can add another adjustment before the figure layer, add an exposure and make it darker a little bit. And by the mask selected, hit Ctrl-I to invert the mask. And for these places, for these parts, I want them to be darker. You can change the color to white and paint here and there to make it a little bit darker, not so much. Maybe we can increase the flow a little bit and make these parts just a bit darker, like that. If you turn it off, you can see the before and after. So come to this exposure and make it a little bit darker, all of the background and also the character. And select this, the mask of the exposure. And for these ones, for the light sources, I don't want them to be dark like this. So with this one selected, let's change the color to black and paint on these parts. You see that it doesn't affect the black parts. In a mask, the function of a mask in Photoshop is that it will show up the white parts of the mask and it will hide the black parts of it. So when I'm painting with black color on this mask, it won't apply, it won't show the exposure changes on that parts. So let's paint on them like this, and also these parts and the top part Let's increase it a little bit, just like that. And we can do it again. And the top part as well. So if I turn this off, you can see the result here. And here is a little bit too much. Let's change the color to a white one. You can change this color, foreground and background color, toggle between them with X. If you press X, they will toggle, and it's a powerful hotkey for you and make the process faster. Let's toggle it to a white color and paint it over here up to we have this result like that. Okay, so let's add some glows to our lights. Again, we have several ways. You can go on with any method you like, but for this tutorial I'm going to continue with the hue and saturation adjustments. With the hue and saturation, you can click on colorize and increase the lightness a little bit and change the color to something similar to your color, to these colors. But I like to add a violet color, something purplish, and between violet and maybe blue, something like this. And we can add saturation a little bit. And with the mask selected, hit Ctrl-I to invert the mask, and all of the mask would be black. It means that nowhere of this mask is showed yet. So let's change the color to white. Let's toggle it with X, and let's increase it a little bit, the size of brush, and paint on these parts that you want to add some glow. And you see that it has really good effect on your scene, because in real world as well we have glows around the lights. And when I turn it off, you can see the result here. It would be a little bit a fantasy, but I like fantasy effects and results in my works. If you don't like, you just don't do it. But I like to exaggerate in colors when I do some photo manipulations. Come to here and let's take a copy of this layer by holding Alt, and you can drag it and bring it here. Hold Alt and the icon will be changed if you come between the layers. It's the icon of clip and mask, and if you click, it would be masked to the preceding layer, I mean the figure layer itself. So select the mask of this layer, and with Control Backspace you can fill all of the mask with the background color. Let's invert the mask, Control-I, and it would be like this. I want to add some highlights on our character, and let's select the hue and saturation itself and make it a little bit saturated like this, and make it lighter and make it a little bit lighter like that. And for the hue one, we can work with the hue as well, and we can work with the hue as well to find a good and suitable color. I think it is good for now. We can always come back and change the color because it isn't a simple layer. These are some adjustments that we can change them anytime we want. So let's double click on that, and the layer style and the layer style or blending options will open up to you. And for this one, we have to work on the underlying layers. If you drag this part, the black parts, and move them to the right part, you see that it's going to remove the black parts of the layer, and gradually it's going to reach the white parts or the highlighted parts. And for this one, let's bring it up to here, and you see that it is really hard. I don't want it. So you can hold Alt and click on that, and it will split this one to 2 arrows, and you have a soft result like this. And we can drag it up to there, and maybe something like that, I suppose. We can work on it a little bit. We can work on it a little bit more to find a good results. I think that's good for now, and maybe we can change the layer mode to screen or color dodge. I think normal is good for now. And when you're satisfied with the result, press Ctrl I to invert the mask. And now with the brush tool, you can bring the parts that you wanted to. And let's do that here and there, just like that. But I will add a supporting lights later. This is just for the starting point, to add in some lights like that. And also these parts, because we have lights in that direction as well, and this part, and also this part, it should have lights like that. And maybe this one itself, and also these parts. Let's go to the blending option again, double click on that, and we can work on it a little bit more, because it wasn't so good. I have to change it a little bit more. Hit OK, and we have this effect here. And let's add another layer. This time maybe I have to bring a solid layer, and for this one let's choose a color like this for now, and change the layer mode to screen. And let's change the color again a little bit more to something like that, and hit OK. And now change it to clipping mask, and this time we are going to work on some edges. Let's select the mask itself and hit Ctrl I to invert the mask, and work on the edges of the layer like this. We have to work on them, and it should be, and it's one of the parts of the work that will take a lot of time. If you want to have a good results, you have to work on them and take your time, and it will take a lot of time. I'm going to change this part to time lapse because it won't be any special thing. I'm going to do it for every part of the character, and you can see the time lapse. Okay, I think it is good for now. Let's change the color a little bit. The color doesn't fit the color of the lights. we can make the color like this. It should be so solid change, and let's add another solid color, and let's clipping mask to the preceding layer and change its color to a blue color like this, and change the layer mode to norm screen or light. I think screen is good, and let's change the color a little bit as well, and then select the mask and Control I to invert the mask. And we want to add some supporting lights. Let's decrease the opacity and flow to somewhere like this, and paint on some parts that they are highlighted for maintaining some height, for maintaining some lights here and there like this. And you can do it here and there, not that part, these parts especially that we have, they are facing the light sources. They should be really bright. For these ones, I'm not gonna work and take your time so much, but absolutely when you are working on your own projects, you have to deal with them and take more time on it, because they aren't in a good quality for now. And the shoulders should be a little bit brighter like this, and like that. If I turn this off, you can see the results. And then we can create some good effects by these ones, and as I told earlier in the video, these small and subtle changes will affect the quality of your artwork so much that you can't believe it yourself. So I think it's too much a little bit, this part. We can change the color to a dark color and paint on the mask to make it a little bit subtle like that. Let's change the color to white by pressing X, and paint on the highlighted, and paint on the highlighted points like these places. And let's paint on this part and decrease the brush and make it black. And with the black brush and black color, you can paint on these parts to maintain some shadows here. This is a good technique to maintain some shadows here and there. You see that it's going to pop out of the scene, and I like that effect here. You can maintain the shadows by the black brush, and actually it's going to clean some of the parts, some of the highlighted parts, and which I've painted on the black parts, and because of that it's going to be more and more interesting, and like that. Maybe for this one as well, and so on. So I think maybe we should change the color of the edges to a little bit wider, color like that. Let's try it. Yeah, I think it's much better now. We have a great effects here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to add some fog to the scene, to foreground and also the background. First, let's start with the foreground, and after that we're going to work on the background behind this Torii gate here. But before doing that, I think it's too much. Let's change it a little bit like that. So, and also we can decrease the opacity of this, the supporting lights to something around 80. Okay, add a new layer, Control-Shift-N, and I'm gonna call it fog. Then press B and we have the brush tool here. Right click and search for a fog brush. I have fog brushes already, but you can find them and import them to the Photoshop. And you can find them anywhere easily, but if I can, I will put the links on the description and you can download from there. And the way to import the brushes is that right click here and come to the properties and import the brushes, and you have to go to the location that you have your brush there and select your brush, and then it will be uploaded and imported to your Photoshop. So let's choose one of the brushes here, maybe this one, and we have to increase the opacity and flow, and let's see how is it. Let's increase it a little bit and add a brush. I don't like it so much. Let's try another one. I have lots of brushes. I have to try lots of them. I have to try many to find a good result. So maybe this one is better. Let's add a brush, a fog brush here, and now press V to select this tool, move tool, and not that one, this one, and Control T, then right click and flip horizontal to flip the brush a little bit, just like that. And let's scale it and to have an effect like this. Or let's try to flip horizontal again. Maybe this would be good for now. I think this is good, not bad. And we can add a layer mask to this one and press B, then select a round brush, round and soft brush, and brush on these parts that we don't want to have fogs. We don't want to have fog. Let's clean them, and I think it is good. And we can change its color by adding a solid color, and maybe we can turn it black and hold Alt and make it a clipping mask to the preceding layer, I mean the fog layer, and we can change its color anytime we want to something around this. This is good. And for the background, I want to add fog here in that part behind the Torii gate. For that, we have to come here and create a new layer. I'm gonna call it fog. Then let's find a good brush for this one. I think maybe we can try. Let me find a good one. I think it is good for now, and let's change this one to all the way up to here. Let's change the direction because I want the fog come in this direction from right to left, and I have to increase opacity, and that's good for now. And also we can change the position of that. Maybe we can bring it a little bit lower and also make it bigger. Yeah, I like it now. And as we did for this one, we can take a copy of this layer here, the solid color, and hold Alt and bring it all the way up to here, and again hold Alt and make it a clipping mask. Make it a clipping mask to this one as well, and we can work on its color and change its color to anything you like at any time you want. But for this one, for now, I'm gonna leave it like this, and I don't want the fog to be here. To do that, let's select this fog layer and add a mask and With the brush tool, I'm gonna choose the soft brush and decrease the size and paint over here to clean the fog from here. And we have to be a little bit precise with these parts, just like that. And maybe I can come to this part and with the object selection tool, I can select this object, but maybe it doesn't work. So let's select the pen tool for this one and select this Torii gate like this. For now, let's disable these layers. I want to see the scene perfectly to not have any mistakes. The fog should be behind these ones, and for that reason we have to select this part and clean the fog from these parts that they are in the foreground, somehow foreground, not foreground itself. And we can select it like that, and I think we have fog up to here. Yes, we have it. We have to clean it. Then this part and up to this part, I think will be okay. So hit Control Enter to enable the selection and enable the layers of fog and exposure, and come to the mask part of the fog, and with the brush tool, let's increase the size and paint it over here, and Control D to deselect it. And you see that we have the fog just in that part behind these ones, and maybe we can increase the feather of the selection. You can select the mask, and in that properties part we have to increase the feather a little bit. In that case it wouldn't be that sharp. I think it's going to be better now. Yeah, that's good. And maybe we can select this layer itself and turn the opacity down just a bit, not so much, and I think it's good. And I think the highlights on this layer on the figure is a little bit more. We can turn the opacity down and also the fill to like this, and maybe we can work on this one as well. And I think it's more better now. And now I want to add some shadows on the foreground. For this one, let's come to all over the layers and add a solid color, and let's change the color to black and make it, and select the mask and Control I, then make the brush a little bit larger and paint on the parts that you want to be a little bit darker on the foreground, like that. And also maybe a little bit on that part and these parts as well. So let's add some fireflies around these lights. I like the effect that they have. Let's add a solid color and change the color to this, a blue and white color, like that. And again, select the mask itself and hit Control I to invert the mask and right click. For now, I'm gonna search for fireflies. And for this one, also you can find these brushes free, but I will try to put the link in the description so you can download them and use them in your own works. Maybe these ones are good. Let's increase the flow and opacity and bring them here and there, just like that. Well, I think it's a little bit big. You can scale it up, scale it down just a bit, and add some effects like these around the light sources, and also this part as well. Let's change the brush to this, and see that it has a good effect and it makes it more fantasy. And for this one, the blade, I want to add a flare. Let's bring a flare image and scale it up a little bit, rotate it to somewhere you want to add the flare, and hit OK, and change its layer mode to screen. Then add a layer mask, and with the brush tool, let's change the brush to round soft brush and increase the size. And let's brush it on that part, but it's white. Because of that, we don't see any differences here. Let's toggle the color to black by pressing X, and let's remove these parts, also this part and that part, and press V to select this move tool and bring it just slightly on the edge, just like that, and it will influence the quality of your work a lot. But maybe we can change it to that part. I think it would be good, but it's a little bit too much. Let's decrease the opacity, and there we go. So I think we're done for now with this part, and we can now go and work with the Chaakoraa filter. So on the top layer, press Ctrl, Shift, Alt, and E, and in that case it would merge all of the preceding layers in just one layer, and we can work on that layer. I'm gonna call it the Lost, because I called my own previous artwork Lost, and it had a story. On my Instagram, I wrote a story about that. You can find it and read the story if you want. So right click and convert to Smart Object. When you turn your layer into Smart Object, if you apply any changes and later you don't like them, you don't feel like them, and if you come back, you can change them at any time. Because of that, I always use with Smart Objects, and they're really useful, but they will use a lot of space of your RAM. So select this one and come to the filter and Chaakoraa filter. And now we have the Chaakoraa filter. Let's maximize it, and you have to work on with the colors and the tint of that. Maybe this amount is good for now, and the exposure, I think we have to increase it just a bit, not so much. It should be subtle, these effects. And also this one. And about the highlights, we can increase the highlights a little bit, and the shadows we can decrease or increase them just a bit, not so much. And about white part, we can increase them, but you don't have to exaggerate on them, because they wouldn't have a good effect. And for the black ones, I'm gonna increase it as well. And with the texture, I think we have to increase it a little bit, and the clarify itself, and also the dehaze. And you have to play with these amounts to find a good result. You can't say that, for example, this amount will be good unless you try it yourself, unless you try different styles and different values to see the results. And the curve part, let's come to the basics part again. And the texture, I think it's too much. Let's decrease the texture a little bit to have this effect. I like that now. And come to the color gradient. I love this part, it's really cool. And for the midtones, I want to change it to somewhere a violet color, somewhere around violet color. About the highlights, I want to change them as well to a violet color, like that. And also about the shadows, let's work on them to find a good results. Maybe this is good for now. Okay, And I want to work on highlights a little bit more, and also the midtones, just like that. I think it's not bad. I like the combination of the violet color with these colors here. If you don't like, you can try another colors as you like, and hit OK, and there we go. And we have to add some grain, and it would be the last step for this tutorial. Let's bring a new layer, Ctrl+Shift+N, and I'm gonna call it grain. And for this one, let's change the color to gray, and the layer mode should be on overlay. And also you have to check this on fill with overlay neutral color and hit OK, and right click on that then and convert to smart object, and come to filter, blur gallery, and fill blurs. Choose one of them, and let's zoom in a little bit. On the noise part, you can increase the amount, and you see that the noises are going to appear right now, and I think that's okay. Hit OK, and there we go. And this is our last result of this tutorial. I'm really glad and surprised that we finished this course, and I hope you have learned something, and I'm really looking forward to your feedbacks. Maybe you can create your own styles and send it to my email. I would really appreciate that. And also, if you want to learn anything in Blender, just let me know in the comments and I'll make a video for that as well. So guys, this course is finished. If you got interested in this course, just let me know and I will make another courses in the future. And for those who haven't subscribed yet and new to the channel, just click on that button below to subscribe in the channel, and hit the like button and also the notification bell in the case of not missing any new videos. So see you on the next videos and also on the next courses.